First story. My husband chose his mom over me while planning our wedding. Now I'm tired of being ignored and alone in my own marriage. When I look back on how my life has unfolded over the last several years, I realize how many red flags I ignored. How many moments I let slip by when I should have stopped and questioned everything. I'm 24 now, and my husband and I have been together since we were teenagers. You'd think after spending nearly a decade with someone, you'd know them inside and out. But here I am, just a year into our marriage, questioning whether we should even be together. The doubts didn't begin after the wedding, they started long before. When we were planning the wedding, I found myself anxious about every decision, constantly worried about upsetting someone or making a wrong choice. It should have been a sign, a loud one, that something was off. But I pushed those feelings aside. I told myself that every couple has challenges during wedding planning. What I didn't realize was how much those challenges were rooted in deeper issues in our relationship. We had initially chosen March 2023 for our wedding date and shared it with our families, asking them to let us know if there were any conflicts. My parents were fine with it, but my husband's mom immediately raised an issue. His sister would be studying abroad and couldn't attend. I was willing to accommodate and suggested we change the date. My husband reassured me it wasn't necessary, and his family didn't mind. But later that night, his dad called, furious and cursing at him, saying his mom was crying over the date and felt we were excluding his sister. So we changed the date. That should have been my second sign. From there, the wedding planning only got more complicated. We agreed we wanted a small ceremony, something intimate, with about 50 guests. We spent months crafting our guest list and double-checked it with his mom to make sure we weren't missing anyone. Everything seemed settled until a month before the wedding. His mom suddenly announced we had forgotten to include several of his extended relatives. These were people I'd barely seen, if ever, in all the years we'd been together. But because she insisted they were essential, we added them to the list, even though it threw off our plans. I tried to let it go. But then, 2 weeks before the wedding, one of the relatives canceled, and his mom decided she wanted to replace them with 2 more people. I was overwhelmed. Our guest list had already ballooned to 80 people, far beyond what we initially wanted. I had a breakdown, pleading with my husband to put his foot down. This was supposed to be our day, and it felt like we had no control over it. His response crushed me. He sided with his mom, saying that because his parents were paying for the catering, they had the right to invite whoever they wanted. He even admitted he cared more about his mother's feelings than mine. I'll never forget how that made me feel, like I didn't matter in my own marriage. Those wedding issues were just the beginning. After we got married, I hoped things would improve, but they didn't. My husband has ADHD, and while I've always tried to be understanding, it feels like he uses it as an excuse to avoid making any real changes. He's addicted to his computer and online gaming. He spends hours in Discord calls with his friends, even during work, and continues gaming late into the night. When I come home from work, we'll spend maybe an hour together watching a show before he's back at his computer. It's like I'm competing with a screen for his attention. Communication has been another constant struggle. I stopped texting him years ago because he rarely responded and switched to messaging him on Discord, thinking it might help since he's always on there. It didn't. He'll talk to his friends for hours but takes forever to reply to me. I've brought it up countless times, but nothing changes. It's exhausting to feel like I'm always the one fighting for his attention and prioritization. Then there's the issue of responsibility. If we have plans to go somewhere, I have to beg him to get up and help me prepare. I'll be running around, getting ready and taking care of our dogs, while he stays in bed until the last possible second. We're often late because of this. I've told him repeatedly how much it frustrates me, but he brushes it off or promises to do better, only to fall back into the same patterns. I've been in therapy for a year now, trying to work through my own depression and anxiety. Recently, I had a breakthrough. I realized I don't have to tolerate behaviors that make me unhappy. It was like a switch flipped in my mind. All the patience and empathy I used to have for my husband's actions, his constant gaming, his lack of communication, his unwillingness to share responsibilities, disappeared overnight. I'm tired. Tired of feeling like I'm alone in this marriage. Tired of constantly compromising while he doesn't. I used to dream of building a family with him, but now I can't imagine bringing kids into this dynamic. What evidence do I have that things would improve? He says he loves me, and I believe he does, but love isn't enough. I need partnership, respect, and support, none of which I feel I'm getting. I'm at a crossroads. Part of me wonders if I'm being overly dramatic, if I should just try harder or wait for him to change. But the other part of me knows I've already waited long enough. Would I be the bad guy if I left, or would I finally be putting myself first? Second story. My mother's insane demand for autographs almost got me fired and ruined my dream career in animation. Now I'm ready to cut ties for good. Working in animation has been my dream for as long as I can remember. I'm a 28-year-old SFX supervisor and cleanup artist, and for the past 4 years, I've been fortunate enough to live that dream. My job allows me to work closely with creative minds and even interact occasionally with well-known voice actors. It's not just a career, it's a passion. But little did I know that my mother's unrealistic demands would put everything I've worked for in jeopardy. 6 months ago, my mother, who runs a small business alongside my grandmother, began pestering me about something that initially seemed harmless, but quickly spiraled into a full-blown nightmare. She'd learned that a friend's daughter was a fan of the show I work on and decided it would be a wonderful idea for me to collect autographs from the cast and crew to gift this girl. But that wasn't all. She wanted me to include a sketchbook filled with signatures and even purchase an additional gift. It was a tall order, and I immediately saw red flags. For context, in the animation industry, obtaining autographs isn't as simple as walking up to someone and asking. There are strict contractual rules in place to prevent misuse of signatures, especially when it involves behind-the-scenes staff like animators, creative directors, and audio engineers. My contract explicitly prohibits soliciting autographs in any capacity that could appear unprofessional or outside proper channels. Violating these rules could mean immediate termination, and I wasn't about to risk my dream job. I explained all of this to my mother repeatedly, emphasizing the legal and ethical issues involved. But she wasn't interested in hearing no. For months, she kept pushing, badgering me with guilt trips and passive-aggressive remarks until I finally caved. Thinking it would put an end to her nagging, I decided to ask my boss for advice. To my surprise, they were open to the idea, under very specific conditions. Instead of a sketchbook, we'd sign a Christmas card, and the gift would be sent directly to the girl's house, avoiding any public display that might appear like an endorsement. Relieved that I could fulfill her request within the rules, I thought this compromise would satisfy everyone. I couldn't have been more wrong. When I called my mother to update her on the revised plan, she flew into a rage. She called me and my colleagues idiots, claiming we'd ruined everything. Her reaction was so extreme that I began to suspect her motives were less about making a fan's day and more about boosting her own ego. I told her flat out that I could cancel the project if it was causing this much drama, which only made things worse. My mother has always had a habit of disregarding explanations when she's angry, twisting the narrative to suit her version of events. This time was no different. Her tirade spilled into my workplace. My frustration and her over-the-top behavior led me to inform a colleague who had been overseeing the project. Word spread quickly, and morale plummeted. People who had been enthusiastic about contributing to the card started withdrawing their names. The situation escalated even further when our parent studio got wind of the drama and launched an internal investigation to ensure no policies were violated. Then came the HR meeting. I was blindsided when I learned the allegations against me were being categorized as running a smuggling ring. Apparently, this referred to collecting signatures, memorabilia, or company property outside authorized procedures, which could be perceived as giving someone unfair access for personal gain. Despite providing mountains of evidence and screenshots to prove my innocence, I was placed on a 1-week unpaid administrative leave while the investigation continued. When I informed my mother of the consequences, hoping she'd finally grasp the severity of the situation, her response was as predictable as it was infuriating. She denied any wrongdoing, claiming she was the real victim. She even sent me screenshots of a message she'd written to the girl's mother, framing the entire situation as an embarrassment to her while barely mentioning the girl at all. It was all about her pride, her reputation, her outrage. The fallout didn't end there. My grandmother, with whom I lived to help care for, was dragged into the drama. I decided I wouldn't spend Christmas at my mother's house this year, a decision fueled by both the ongoing feud and the logistical nightmare of her household, which includes 10 unruly dogs. When she found out, she lashed out again, accusing me of abandoning her and refusing to acknowledge the damage her actions had caused. Now, as I sit in professional limbo, unsure if I'll be able to salvage my career, I'm grappling with a hard truth. My mother's relentless demands and disregard for boundaries have pushed me to the brink. If I lose my job over this, I don't think I can maintain a relationship with her. This isn't the first time her actions have driven me away. I spent 12 years estranged from her once before. The thought of cutting ties for good isn't easy, but I can't let her sabotage my future any longer. This situation has left me emotionally drained, but one thing is clear. If my dream job survives this ordeal, I'll be setting much firmer boundaries moving forward. And if it doesn't, I may need to walk away, not just from this career, but from the toxic dynamic with my mother that led me here in the first place. Third story. I did my new friend's nails for a fair trade, but she accused me of stealing and exposed me on TikTok. Now our friend group is split. I'm someone who loves the little community we've built among our friend group. We're a tight-knit circle of 6, all supportive, creative, and just generally there for each other. Our thing is trading services. It's a quirky system we came up with to share our talents. For example, I might do someone's nails for free, and in return, they'd do something like style my hair or help me with something of equal value. It's always been a casual, friendly arrangement, and everyone is on board. No pressure, no awkwardness, just favors and goodwill. 2 months ago, our group welcomed someone new, Jane. She was introduced to us by one of the others, and from the get-go, she seemed eager to fit in. Jane is a year older than me, 22, and has her own small business making custom t-shirts, clothing, and accessories. I thought that was pretty cool. She seemed creative and passionate. At first, everything seemed fine. Soon after joining us, Jane started taking an interest in my nails. I'm not a professional, but I've gotten really good at nail art, and it's one of the things I contribute to our little trading system. Jane mentioned that she couldn't afford to get her nails done at the moment, so I suggested we do a trade. She was excited, and I was happy to help. When we worked out the trade, I made sure to explain how it works. The nails I planned to do for her would normally cost £160 at a salon, so I asked her to give me clothes or accessories from her collection worth about the same. Jane agreed, and everything seemed clear. After I did her nails, she picked out some items, and the total came to about £70. I told her not to worry about the remaining £90. It was more about building a connection with her and making her feel welcome. She seemed thrilled, and honestly, I was too. It was a fun experience, and I enjoyed getting to know her one-on-one. Fast forward a few weeks, and things took an unexpected turn. Out of the blue, Jane texted me, apologizing and saying she couldn't afford to give away £70 worth of her stuff. She wanted me to either pay her back for the items or return them. At first, I was taken aback. I couldn't have been more clear about the trade system, and it was entirely her choice to agree. I explained this to her, gently reminding her of our arrangement. I also mentioned that I didn't have all the items anymore because I'd planned to give some to my sister for her birthday. I offered to pay her back when I got my next paycheck, even though it didn't sit right with me. But that wasn't enough for Jane. She kept pushing, repeatedly asking me to just pay her back. Things escalated when she brought the issue to our group chat, complaining that I wasn't paying for the clothes she gave me. I thought the others would be confused, but Jane let it slip that it had been a trade. The rest of the group quickly pointed out that backing out of an agreed deal weeks later wasn't fair. I thought that would settle it, but Jane took things even further. She went on TikTok and posted a video accusing me of stealing from her and refusing to pay her back. She didn't name me directly, but it didn't take long for people to figure out who she was talking about. Some of the others saw the video, and after a heated discussion, we decided to remove Jane from the friend group. It wasn't just this incident, it was the way she handled the whole situation that made everyone uncomfortable. Now, here's where things get complicated. The group is split down the middle. Half of them feel that I should have just paid Jane back, especially since she seems to be struggling financially. They think it would have been the kind thing to do, even if I wasn't obligated. The other half believe I didn't do anything wrong and that Jane shouldn't have agreed to the trade if she wasn't comfortable with it. I honestly don't know what to think anymore. I never forced her into the trade, and I explained everything clearly, but now I'm questioning if I should have handled it differently. As for Jane, she clearly thinks I'm the bad guy here. Part of me feels bad because I know what it's like to struggle financially, but another part of me feels it's unfair to expect someone else to fix your mistakes. So, am I the asshole,